Have you ever wondered what it feels like to stare into darkness so thick it feels alive? To sense unseen eyes watching from every shadow? Tonight, we're taking you deep inside one of the country's most infamously haunted places. A slaughterhouse where the echoes of past horrors still linger, desperate for new victims. This is Scary Moo, and we survived a night locked inside the cursed slaughterhouse. They call it the Butcher's Hollow. Built in 1922, the slaughterhouse once thrived on the edge of a forgotten town, processing livestock by day and, if the rumors are true, something far more sinister by night. The people who lived here before us whispered of strange disappearances, of blood that never quite washed away, and of a man with eyes like raw meat who was seen prowling the halls after midnight. The doors were welded shut in 1979 after a final, bloody incident that left 3 workers dead and 1 missing, her body never found. Since then, only the bravest, or the most foolish, have dared to set foot inside. We arrived just before sunset, the sky bruised purple and gold, as if the world itself was warning us to leave. The air around the slaughterhouse was thick with a stench that had never faded, like rotten iron and old, wet fur. The windows, once boarded, now gaped like broken teeth. Even before we stepped inside, we could feel the weight of what waited for us. But we had made a promise to bring you the truth. The real story of the Butcher's Hollow. As the last rays of sunlight died, we pressed through the heavy doors. They groaned open with a sound that was almost a scream. The main hall was choked with dust and shadows. Chains dangled from the ceiling, swaying as if moved by invisible hands. Beneath them, dark stains marred the concrete floor. Some said the stains moved at night, creeping like spilled oil. We tried not to stare too long. For the first hour, it was just the 2 of us, myself and my friend, Jamie, pacing around, nerves buzzing. The silence was a living thing, broken only by the distant drip of water and the low, metallic clatter of chains. We told ourselves it was just the building settling, that our fear was playing tricks on us. But then, something shifted. It started with a chill. Not the usual kind of cold, a sharp, slicing cold that bit straight to the bone. We could see our breaths puffing out in front of us. The temperature dropped so quickly, we could barely speak through chattering teeth. Then came the smell, thick and coppery, as if the air itself was bleeding. Jamie gagged, clutching her shirt to her nose. We heard it then, a wet, dragging sound, coming from deeper in the building. It echoed through the halls, impossibly slow, like something heavy being pulled inch by inch across the floor. We exchanged glances, daring each other to move forward. With every step, the air grew heavier, pressing down on us like an invisible hand. We found ourselves in the kill room. The walls were streaked with rust, or maybe something darker. Hooks hung from overhead rails, each one crusted with decades of filth. The sound was louder here, the dragging noise just beyond the far doorway. We hesitated, but the urge to know, to see, was stronger than our fear. I'll never forget what happened next. As we stepped closer, the door at the end of the room slammed shut with a force so violent we jumped back. The chains above us began to sway wildly, clinking and rattling as if in a storm. Then, from the shadows, a whisper rose. Soft at first, then louder, until it filled the room. It sounded like a name, repeated over and over. The same name that had appeared in police reports from the night of the final massacre. Eliza. We tried to call out, to ask if anyone was there. But our voices sounded small and hollow. The only answer was the relentless whisper, weaving through the air like a snake. Jamie reached out to touch the nearest hook, and immediately recoiled, her hands slick with something cold and sticky. Blood, fresh, impossibly fresh. Panic clawed at our throats. We stumbled back toward the exit, but the door wouldn't budge. It was as if the building itself wanted us to stay. The lights flickered, casting wild, leaping shadows across the walls. In one of those shadows we saw it, a figure tall and thin, with limbs too long and a face hidden in darkness. The butcher. He stared at us with eyes that glowed red in the flickering light, and when he smiled, his mouth split open far too wide, revealing rows of broken, bloody teeth. We ran, we ran, back through the maze of halls, our footsteps echoing in the silence. But every path twisted back on itself, leading us deeper into the heart of the slaughterhouse. The air grew thick with whispers, voices overlapping and clamoring, begging for help, for escape, for revenge. Sometimes, the voices seemed to come from inside our own heads. I knew we had to keep moving. Stopping meant surrendering. But every time we turned a corner, we found something worse. A locker door banged open, spilling out a cascade of old, yellowed bones. A gutted animal carcass, fresh and steaming, though no one had entered this place in decades. In the old office, the walls were scratched with desperate messages. Don't trust the mirrors. He's always watching, the meat is never gone. The clock in that office had stopped at 3:33 a.m. The same time every victim was said to have vanished. We pressed on, desperate to find a way out. That's when Jamie screamed. I spun around to find her staring into a cracked mirror, her face pale and twisted with terror. In the reflection, I saw her, but behind her stood the butcher, his hand resting on her shoulder. I whirled around, expecting to see him, but we were alone. When I looked back, the reflection was gone, but Jamie still shivered, insisting she felt icy fingers gripping her neck. We tried the emergency exit, the loading bay, even the tiny windows in the break room. Every escape was blocked, by rusted chains, by invisible force, by the butcher himself. The whispers grew louder, sometimes screaming, sometimes laughing. We could feel invisible hands brushing our skin, tugging at our clothes, pulling us back toward the kill room. It was then that we realized the slaughterhouse wasn't just haunted, it was hungry. It wanted us to be part of its story, to add our screams to the chorus of the damned. Every room we entered, the shadows grew thicker, darker, alive with writhing shapes. We saw faces in the stains on the walls, mouths opening in silent screams, eyes rolling in terror. We heard footsteps behind us, but every time we turned, there was nothing but darkness. The air grew so thick, it was hard to breathe. Jamie collapsed to her knees, sobbing, as the whispers turned into a single, deafening roar. Stay. I grabbed her, dragging her to her feet, and together we stumbled back toward the main hall. But the building didn't want to let us go. The doors slammed shut, chains whipped across our path, and the butcher's laughter echoed through the halls, a deep, guttural sound that rattled our bones. Desperate, we remembered the stories. The legends that said the only way to escape the butcher's hollow was to offer it something it wanted. Blood for blood, fear for fear. Jamie pulled out her pocket knife and, with shaking hands, drew a line across her palm. She pressed her bleeding hand to the old slaughter table, whispering a prayer to whatever forgotten god might be listening. The room shuddered, the whispers fell silent, and for a moment, we thought we'd failed. But then, the chains began to fall, one by one, clattering to the floor. The doors creaked open, spilling in the cold, blue light of dawn. We didn't hesitate, we ran, stumbling and gasping, out into the early morning, leaving the screams and shadows behind us. We collapsed on the grass, shivering and shaking, as the sun climbed higher. Behind us, the slaughterhouse loomed, silent and watchful. We knew we'd escaped, but at what cost? Jamie's hand still bled, and deep inside, we could both feel the weight of the place, as if a part of us had never really left. In the days that followed, we tried to forget. But the dreams wouldn't stop. We saw the butcher in every shadow, heard the whispers in every silence. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake to find my hands stained red, though there's no wound, no blood. Jamie says she feels someone watching her, even in broad daylight. And every time we pass a butcher's shop, the smell of raw meat makes us gag. We've spoken to others who spent time inside the butcher's hollow. Some laughed it off as a trick of the mind, a prank played by the darkness. But the ones who truly know, who've seen what we saw, never laugh. They warn us to stay away, to never return. But the slaughterhouse is patient. It waits, its hunger never sated. And sometimes, when the wind is just right, you can hear the chains rattling, the whispers rising, calling out for new blood. So, if you ever find yourself near the edge of that forgotten town, and you see the hulking shadow of the old slaughterhouse, keep walking. Don't listen to the voices, don't follow the whispers. And whatever you do, never look back. The butcher is always watching, waiting for someone foolish enough to step inside, and not everyone is lucky enough to survive. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey through the cursed slaughterhouse. If you want more tales of real terror, haunted places, and the things that lurk in the dark, make sure to subscribe to Scary Moo. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a scream, and share your own horror stories in the comments below. Until next time, sleep with the lights on, and remember, some doors should never be opened.